Hello, everyone, and welcome to Huyuka, our online webinar about identity crisis in the time of pandemic, its causes, and how to solve them. But before anything else, let's start our webinar with a prayer led by Paul Carubanga and by singing the Philippine National Anthem.
Let us all bow our heads and bask in the holy presence of the Lord as we join in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. Dear Lord, thank you for this day that you have given us. Thank you for the vision, ideas, skills, and chance that you have given us to inspire and touch other people's lives through this webinar. Lord, we ask for your full guidance in completing this webinar. Please guide our team, from our host, down to our speakers, down to our technical support, from which we may perform our 100% best for this task. And for our listeners, we ask for your full guidance for them to have the right mind to fully understand our topic and grasp the informations that may be beneficial for them and hopefully integrate them into their lives. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for leading the prayer, Paul. Let us keep the solemn atmosphere as we sing the Philippine National Anthem.
Let us put our right hand on our left chest and let's sing the Philippine National Anthem. Bayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pa sisiil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw, may dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwalhatit pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pagmay mang-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
All right. Good day, everyone. I'm Kim De La Torre, Multimedia Arts student from section MMA 102, and I will be your host for today's event. To kick things off, I'd like to thank everyone who is here with us in this webinar. Your presence is very much appreciated. Now, as you may all know, our event is entitled Huyuka, Identity Crisis in the Time of Pandemic. In line with this, we will tackle one of the most prevalent problems that an individual can possibly go through during a during a time of crisis such as what we are currently experiencing, which is losing our sense of purpose brought about by the vast changes in our daily lives. And of course, we all want to fight that feeling of hopelessness that comes with experiencing identity crisis. With that, we are here to help you through this webinar. So sit back and relax. But don't be too relaxed that you forget to listen attentively. Lend us your ear, and the rest is up to our speakers for today. Our speakers for today will be Mr. Ranran Saicon, Ms. Jessery Ann Diaz, Mr. Remerson Torres, and last but not the least, Mr. Mark Angelo Santos, all being students of Class MMA 102 and my classmates. But before I let speakers take the stage though, I would like to have few words. Allow me to ask all of you, huyo ka? Seriously, sino ka ba? Kung tama ang hula ko, some of you probably froze when I asked that question. And naintindihan ko naman kung ganon. Ganon. Mahirap naman talaga yung question, right, Mark?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Kim. And actually, actually mahirap na talaga siya. Lalo na ngayong panahon ng pandemya kung saan mahirap makapaghanap ng solusyon dahil limited na mga bagay na kaya natin gawin during quarantine. Yung tipong parang paulit-ulit na yung mga lives natin. So manood ng anime, Netflix, YouTube, maglaro ng sangkaterbang video games at gumawa ng mga requirements. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so ayun yung pro natin. We have all the time in this world during this pandemic. And next slide. Yeah, so you don't control your time even though you have all the time pero di mo siya kontrolado dahil you have school, you have work, and Some of them have school chores. Home does. Oh yeah, okay. So there's not much time you can do at home, and ironically, you have less of your time to take care of yourself if you get lost with the things that you're doing. Parang, yun nga, watching Netflix and all, you can't, once you pop, you can't stop. Parang ganun, right? So next slide. Yeah, so based on my experience, ito yung mga 5 things na nagawa ko during this pandemic. Ayun nga. Schoolworks, talk to people, Netflix series, YouTube videos, and play video games. Ayun nga, as I said kanina. Next slide. Yeah, so, and actually yung question na yan, we've been trying to answer that ever since unang nag-exist tayo as human beings, Simula po nung ancient Greek philosophy hanggang ngayon. We've been trying to come up with answers para sagutin yung mga tanong na yan. And actually, we did. Kaso, hindi siya isang sagot lamang. Dahil maraming approaches para sagutin yung tanong na, sino ka ba? Sino ba tayo? Sino ba ako? Maraming approaches dyan tulad ng philosophical perspective itself na nakabase sa morals ng ating puso, sociological approach na nakabase sa kalagayan natin sa society, anthropological, western, eastern, physical, sexual, and many more.
However, the kind of perspective that we want to use to describe the self in this pandemic is the psychological perspective of the self. Dahil ang sabi nga dito, it is focusing on the development of ourself, diba? And since nasa quarantine tayo ngayon, at ang iba sa atin ay walang social interaction sa labas, walang interaction sa ibang tao, ito yung napili naming perspective. But before we start discussing the different psychological perspective of the self, let's start define kung ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng self at psychology. So, the self is our personality and the concept of ourselves. Kumbaga, it's how we would like to see ourselves among others. Diba? Ang psychology naman is the study of human behavior.
Yeah.
So, ipa-break down natin yung psychology na yan. Yung psychology, galing siya sa Greek word na psyche, meaning soul or mind. At logos meaning the study of, diba? Psyche and logos, the study of soul or mind. Psychology naman is study of human behavior.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark and Jess, for introducing the concept behind the perspective of the self na gagamitin natin on helping our audience find themselves during this pandemic. And moving on, without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker of psychological perspective of the self, Mr. Ranran Saikon.
Thank you for the grand entrance, Kim. So, hi guys, I am Ranjan Saikon, and I will be your first speaker for today. The title of the first psychological perspective of the self that I would like to talk about is called Real and Ideal Self. It was proposed by Carl Rogers, an American psychologist with a humanistic approach to psychology. So, let's start. The real self is how we see ourselves, while ideal self is what people aspire to possess. And also, we have what we call congruence and incongruence. Congruence is when our ideal and real self are closely matched and there's a high self-worth. Pag sinabi natin high self-worth, it means people are able to self-actualize, while incongruence is when you are psychologically unhealthy individual and not capable of self-actualization. So let's talk about the reality. Now that we're still in the midst of a pandemic, mostly sa atin is nasa bahay lang kasi syempre it's not safe outside and yung ibang mga tao is nawalan ng trabaho. Due to that is may mga tao na nagda-doubt dinadoubt nila yung sarili nila and parang di na nila makita yung purpose nila. And ako rin, may mga times na na-experience ko yan and napakahirap talaga. Parang it felt like you are lost and so yun, mahirap talaga siya. But to be able to stand up again, you have to do something for yourself. So let me give you some few tips. First is you have to know yourself first. So, subukan yung kausapin yung sarili niyo sa mirror and try to ask yourself and remind niyo yung sarili niyo kung sino kayo. Kasi parang naghahanap kayo ng sagot or ina-enlighten niyo na yung sarili niyo para makita niyo ulit kung sino kayo. Second is, do the things that you still haven't tried. So basically, ito yung parang, it's like you're challenging yourself from new things. And parang nag-explore ka rin dito. So example is, try to think of your weakness and strength and then um, isipin nyo kung saang way kayo mag improve and so yun, challenge nyo ng sarili nyo. Third is, list down the things that you want to do for yourself. So basically ito yung magiging guide nyo para may ma-achieve kayo sa sarili nyo. So example dito is, ilista nyo lang yung mga bagay na gusto nyo gawin sa papel or sa notes nyo sa cellphone. Kasi para maging organized and talagang maging productive ka. Kasi may mga times na may mga free time tayo pero nako-confuse tayo kasi parang di natin alam kung saan tayo magsisimula. So yun. Fourth is to not forget the reason why you want to achieve your goals. Why? Kasi nga, yung reason na yun is yun yung parang nag-motivate sa'yo para magpursige ka. And kung wala kang rason or nalimutan mo yung rason kung bakit mo gustong i-achieve yun, then you will not be able to make any progress talaga. And lastly, believe in yourself. Kung wala kang pagtiwala sa sarili mo, pero kahit may rason ka, hindi ka talaga makaka-move forward or makakagawa ng kahit anong progress sa sarili mo. Kasi parang lagi ka na nasa starting line. Paulit-ulit ka na lang na, or I mean, pabalik-balik pa, ganun. So, yun, find some answers and para may magawa ka para sa sarili mo. Yes, I know it's hard, pero for you to be able to stand up once again and live your life to the fullest, you have to do something for yourself. So, next. The title of the next psychological perspective of the self is The Differentiated Self. And this was proposed by Murray Bowen, an American psychiatrist. Differentiation of the self is the capacity to achieve a clear, coherent sense of self along with emotional relationships with important other. So, meron two types ng differentiated self. First is yung highly, where you are balanced and you can establish deep connection without losing oneself. Second is poorly, where you are very attached to the role you play in a relationship. So, talking about reality, nowadays, may mga taong masasabi natin poorly differentiated because they are too attached to their families, friends, basta sa mga mahal nila sa buhay. And they cannot separate their thinking and feelings. Kasi nga, syempre, masyado silang attached. And may mga times na parang lagi na lang sila nag-ask ng permission sa iba. And so yung parang it's like they're being controlled by their own feelings. And bilang isang tao na lagi ring nagre-rely sa friends and family, I learned na we have to be independent rin. And we need to set our own beliefs, goals, or etc. Para may sarili tayong daan na tatahakin. So why is it important to become highly differentiated and how to become one? First is, do not let yourself get too attached to the point that you're being controlled. Kasi nga, yun nga, you will not be able to live your own life and lagi ka na lang aasa sa kanila. And always remember guys na hindi lahat ng mahal natin sa buhay is magi-stay sa atin. Aalis at aalis din sila. So yun, kailangan natin matuto mabuhay ng mag-isa din kahit paano. Second is develop your own beliefs, ideas, and goals separate to other people's beliefs. So basically, ito yung magiging guide mo para sa sariling daan na tatahakin mo. And para hindi na yung parang yung aasa ka na lang sa iba. Ganun. Third is make connections but never lose yourself. So yun nga, kailangan natin matutunan kung paano i-separate yung feelings and thinking natin para hindi na tayo makontrol ng mga feelings natin. And para, ayun, magkaroon na tayo ng sarili nating buhay. So, anyway, those are two of the psychological perspectives. And as for the next ones, I would like to pass on the stage to Jess. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ranran. Anyway, I would like to discuss another psychological perspective of the self, called the self as proactive and agentic. Now, what is the self as proactive and agentic? It is a perspective of self made by Albert Bandura, an American-Canadian psychologist. According to him, our selves is not reactive towards environmental forces or driven by some kind of inner impulse. It is by that regard na ayon sa kanya daw ay tayong mga humans, tayong mga tao daw ay proactive. Meaning na we shape ourselves. Hinuhubog yung sarili natin and the world around us through processes tulad ng self-realization. And also, according to him, there are two types of selves. May dalawang uri ng selves daw. Isa na dyan ay yung proactive self, which is the self that aims to better oneself. Di ba? Sarili nila yung nagbabago. And yung isa naman ay the agentic self, meaning the self that aims to affect the world the one is in. Ayun, paligid naman nila yung nagbabago. His theory states that you can have a high capacity in either one of those selves. However, one can feel the most fulfillment when both selves can properly manifest. That means one can be more proactive and less agentic, meaning that they're more focused on improving themselves, while not being too agentic as to affect and do change to the world around them all too much. Focus lang sila sa sarili nila habang di masyado naapektuhan yung nasa paligid nila or yung story nila, while the other can be more agentic. Pero less naman yung pagiging proactive, meaning they want to affect or change the world and their surrounding without having much improvement on themselves. For example, of characters in popular media, diba, who manifest themselves more on the proactive self and less of the agentic self are side characters. Side characters sa mga movies or sa mga story, yon. Characters such as Pachako Uraraka from My Hero Academia, kung kilala niyo siya. So, she showed herself to improve over the course of the series without actually driving the story like the stories of the main protagonist, Deku or All Might, di ba? Ini-improve niya yung sarili niya bilang maging isang hero, di ba? Side characters lang yung kadalasan nakakagawa nito. Next example of a character in the media who's more agentic naman than proactive is, the best example dito I see Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. So, Leon, nasa universe siya where zombies were taken over the parts of the world. And his main objective for that game, sa Resident Evil 4, is to save the president's daughter na si Ashley, who was kidnapped by a cult. Diba? Leon became the driving force of the story, saving the president's daughter. And 'di ba, tumatakbo na yung game, tumatakbo na yung plot, nagbabago na yung story niya sa series or sa game. Diba? Throughout the story, Leon's character is just static from beginning to end. Walang pinagbago. He remains brave, goal-oriented, badass, humorous, caring, and good at weapons and martial arts. Diba? Madami na nagawang Resident Evil, may movies pa nga eh, diba? But still, Leon is Leon. Diba? With his character being near to perfect already at the start of the game. It removes the need for him to be proactive. Diba? Next, punta tayo sa high capacity on both proactive and agentic. Ito naman, balance na sila dito. Most of the time, examples of the characters in mass media that have this are the main protagonists as they go through character development while at the same time driving the story and the changes in their world forward. Diba? Parehas na sila, parehas na tumatakbo yung character, yung self, pati yung story. Thinking of the characters such as Asta from Black Clover, kung kilala niyo siya, who was born into a world filled with magic, diba? With him having no sort of power at the start of the series. Diba? Ang sad nun, diba? Magicless siya. Tapos yung mga tao nasa paligid niya, puro nakakagamit ng magic. Diba? Lalo na si Yuno, diba? However, as the plot progressed, he eventually obtained the power of anti-magic. Yung anti-magic niya, kinakancel niya yung magic ng ibang mages. Diba? Embarking on the journey with fellow mages, he makes stride in order to achieve his dream of being the next wizard king. Diba? Tumatakbo na yung story ni Asta, nakikisabay na doon yung character development niya sa series. Diba? Another popular character would be Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, who in the series starts off as human boy with seemingly no powers. However, as Titan enter the wall, diba? Pumasok yung mga Titan, naghasik ng mga lagim doon, diba? Then resulting to the death of his mother, Eren had the goal of killing all the Titans. Diba? Later in the series, he discovers that he has the ability of turning into Titan himself. Diba? Ang gandang twist nun sa character. And with that, he becomes the agent of the change for the Survey Corps, being humanity's hope from inside the walls. So, but how do we better ourselves? How do we achieve fulfillment and increase our capacity for our proactive and agentic selves? Also, Bandura also provides three more concepts. May tatlong concept na naman in order to be more proactive and agentic. Una na dito ay yung tinatawag na self-efficacy, which is the ability to believe in yourself. In other words, sa madaling salita, self-confidence. Diba? We get more self-confidence when we succeed more in our life, which is achieved through improvement then. Improvement, on the other hand, can be achieved from learning from others' experience, which he calls vicarious or vicarious experience. Yan. An example of this is during pandemic. Tayo mga artist, di ba? Nagpo-post tayo ng mga art natin sa mga sa social media accounts, sa art accounts natin. Because minsan, naiisip natin na sa pag-post na yon, natatakot din tayo eh. Kasi ngayon nga, sa loob na tayo ng pandemic, lack self-confidence na tayo. So, naiisip natin, biglang nag-isip yung utak natin na, what if onti lang yung mag-like? What if people don't like it? What if di nila nagustuhan yung concept? What if binabash na nila ako sa art ko na di ko pa alam? One way to cope up with that is to view your mutuals or fellow beginner artists na they keep on drawing and posting. Sige, go lang. Drawing ka lang dyan. Support ako, full support ako sa'yo. Tapos, for each and every post na nadadagdagan yung reacts, and because of that, you learn from that and you start doing that as well. Diba? Tapos, when you achieve the same, our body provides with psychological feedback, making us feel satisfaction. Diba? Natutuwa na tayo, nasa-satisfied na tayo sa nangyayari sa atin. Diba? The second one is the self-regulation. The ability to monitor and manage your energy, states, emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Diba? In other words, self-control. Diba? There are 2 steps in order to achieve this. Dalawang steps ulit. Diba? Breakdown natin yan. Self-observation and self-reaction. So, example na self-observation is, ito, during pandemic ulit, tayo mga students nasa online na, diba? Online class na tayo. So, may time na nasa kalagitnaan ka ng game, nasa kalagitnaan ka na paglalaro ng games, or panonood ng mga movies, or anime, or basta kung anong ginagawa ng hobbies, diba? Bigla kang ulit mapapaisip, ino-observe mo yung sarili mo, diba? And you ask, why am I doing this despite the fact na meron pa akong kailangan ipasa na requirements? Bukas na bukas rin, may papasa tayong requirements, diba? Ganon. Ayun yung self-observation, ino-observe natin yung sarili natin. And after that, papasok dyan yung self-reaction. Magre-react yung body mo, diba? Kung titigil ka sa pananood, or no, or you won't, diba? You achieve self-regulation if you reacted to it positively and responsibly. Ganon. And lastly, BTRC, or Bandura-Stradic Reciprocal Causation. Diba? Ito, pinagandang words lang. Sa environment, behavior of the society, and person are all connected to the another. Yun yung other words sa BTRC. Environment, behavior of society, and person are all connected to one another. Diba? They all affect each other reciprocally. In other words, sa madaling salita, pag nag-change yung isa, lahat mababago. So ito na naman, pandemic na naman. Dito talaga ang dami nangyayari sa COVID, di ba? So in our environment, madami nang nai-infect, madami nang nagkaka-virus, di ba? Therefore, ang natural behavior of the society is to avoid the pandemic. Di ba? Natural behavior na. Diba nung unang announcement pa lang nung COVID na yan, dito, lahat ng tao nagpa-panic buying na, nagpa-panic sa virus na yan. Yung tipong di ka pa nakakaapak na entrance ng grocery store, kita mo na yung, linis na yung pupuntahan mo eh. Wala ka nang makukuha mga pagkain kasi nga nagpa-panic buying na. Na hindi naman natin nakikita araw-araw yun eh. Diba? Biglang nagbago lahat. Yung behavior ng tao. And because of that, as people, tayong tao will wear face mask and follow safety protocols para na rin ma-avoid natin yung virus na yan and spreading that. With people doing that, the pandemic slowly but surely decreases in numbers and dies down in its environment. So therefore, in order to become agentic and affect the world, one must really also consider to be proactive and improve oneself to improve the environment around them. So to conclude, I just want to share my experience. As we undergo in this kind of situation due to the pandemic, we're still not sure on what we need or want to be done in ourselves after this. Being agentic without being proactive right now is not healthy in the mind of a person. It will cause them a difficulty to learn on what is right in front of the mind of the others. Diba? And also, it only causes them problem without an improvement in their behavior. Proactive without agentic are those people who are focusing only on their life or in their future and become a better person. So I kind of relate to the proactive without agentic and agentic with the proactive, both balance, because I just don't know how to react or what will be the things I want to improve with the given time of the pandemic. I was kind of confused last time because I just don't know what kind of personality should I use or improve until now to be a better person. It is just I should know more about myself. I think it also due to my surroundings. I don't know. I only know what I'm just a person who is only good at experimenting on personality. Mapa-social man yan or in person. Kaya ayun, kung tatanungin nyo man ako about sa personality ko o sa buong pagkatao, well, I don't know. Pero kung mapilit kayo or sabang curious kayo sa akin, well, masasabi ko lang kung ano yung ugali o yung ako kung ano ako ngayon. Okay? So that's all. That was kind of long, but I would like to thank all of you for listening to me. I would now like to pass the stage to Rem for the next psychological perspective of the self.
Okay, hi guys. A little surprise, it's not actually Rem, but it was me, Mark. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the Me Self and I Self by Professor George Herbert Med. And as for Rem, he's going to talk about True Self and False Self by Professor Donald Winnicott.
Yep.
Okay, so the first topic that I would want to talk about is, well, we would like to talk about is I Self and Me Self. Next slide, please. This process is characterized by Med as the I and the me. The me is the social self and the material self and the spiritual self. And the I is the response to me, or basically it's the consciousness or the knower, basically. So next. Okay, so I would like to talk about the different sides of the me self. So here's one: the material self, or the possessions and value that's one's own, and the extensions of ourselves. So wait. Yeah, so as you can see here, ito yung mga different types of the material self. So we've got money, we've got our properties, or like our houses, and we've got our clothes and our gaming consoles, for example. Ganun. Yes, so yeah, so as you can see in this picture right now, sa laptop, there's this guy holding money to his ears. Pero ayun nga, ayun yung material self, we're not material, pero ayun nga, what we have around us can be considered as what can define us. So for example, para sa akin, in my room right now, there's a green screen, meron ding nice microphone, meron din akong mga instruments. So that must mean I'm a musician, right? So that's one of the ways that you can define yourself with material self and the me self. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got the social self, and this is how we think other people think about us. So, ayun, it could be positive or negative. So, ayun nga, if, for example, I'm going to ask Rem, no? Rem, what do you think of
Yeah.
me, man?
A friend and a true friend. That's all.
A friend, a true friend. Okay.
Yes.
No, yeah,
Both
but,
of them.
yeah, but how do you view me? Do you think na I'm a good person? Do you think na I'm a bad person? What do you think?
You're uh, a good person, of course. You always help me.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, but thank you. Honestly, I'm very flattered by that and honored that I'm that person to you. But that's how social self is. It's how we think other people think
Yeah.
about us. And sometimes for me, on my own, I think that other people think badly of me sometimes. Sometimes there are moments when I'm taking a bath and then I imagine something cringy I did in the past. And I was like,
Oh.
may nakakaalala nito somewhere, somehow. Things like that.
Something embarrassing you did in the past that you
Yeah.
remember.
Exactly. So something like that. So ayun nga, it could be positive or negative. Just like eto nga si si Buff Doge, tsaka si Chims. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Okay, what's next?
Spoiler alert, it's spiritual self, or basically it's the most intimate part of ourselves. It's the dispositions, thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. So when you say spiritual self, it's not only the religion and all that. So it's not only I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, things like that. um it's not really that, but it's moreover, according kay George Med, it's more of your feelings and morals, kumbaga, what you are in your heart. So I guess for me, what I believe by is, ayun nga, all of us are equal, things like that. I also believe that justice should prevail at all times. Sometimes it's probably better not to know the truth sometimes kasi, ignorance is bliss, sabi ni Socrates, something like that. So ayun nga, that's the spiritual self. It's your morals and what you believe in. So yeah, that could help define me. Next slide, please.
Mm,
All right, so Rem, what's your thoughts about all this, man?
my thoughts about it is it's pretty hard to explain, but I have also some different kind of opinions in myself as well as my past mistakes as well. You're not the only one as having that.
Oh, definitely, man. It's a hard thing to lose, actually.
But come to think of it, it's one of your most precious time that you created in the history of mankind. Actually, those mistakes of yours you learn from it.
Exactly. That's a good thing to know.
Yep.
And yeah, aside from that, well, if I'm going to put an example to this right now, so well, let's get one of the most famous cartoon characters, si SpongeBob, for example. So, yung eye self ni SpongeBob, that's basically his brain or whatever, his own consciousness, ayun yung I self ni SpongeBob. But yung me self ni SpongeBob, it could be divided into three, which is yung material self niya. For example, his clothes, his pineapple house. Well, if it's politically correct to say na Gary is his property, yeah, maybe that.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you could say na, oh, SpongeBob is a sponge who lives in a pineapple. Yeah, who lives in a pineapple. Yeah, ganun. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea.
Okay. Here's also another character that has the same thing as well. This character's name would be Emiyashiro's, let's say, the one who adopted Emiyashiro. I forgot
From what anime?
his name. That would be Fate's Stay Night, but
Oh.
it's set up before the Fifth Holy Grail War. So, the father of Shiro that grail itself can grant any kind of wish.
It's
It's
like
a material.
a
It's a
magic
legendary
lamp. Yeah,
material.
parang ganun.
Yeah, but
Okay, fair enough.
there are seven servants that must fight for it in order to get the grail. There are seven servants. Out of those seven servants, Kotomine, I mean not Kotomine, that was his enemy, the bastard. The father of Shiro's servant, he got the legendary Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur himself. He is too OP. I'm telling you. He's breaking everyone, killing everyone, just to get that wish.
Also, basically, yung the father or whoever the murderous guy was. So he's a very materialistic person. He wants the
Yes.
holy grail so he can get everything he wants, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Any
so
kind of wish he wants.
yeah, so here's the thing. So that's the thing about being materialistic and your social self. So what happens in those parts is when you're being too materialistic sometimes to the point that you ignore social conventions and things like that. So people have the tendency to think bad of you, like, oh yeah, I
Yes.
want power, things like that. So yeah, and as for the spiritual self naman ni, well, the murderous guy, I
Yeah.
think his morals are like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being, selfish and wanting the best for yourself. That's a good thing, but the bad thing is stepping on other people. That's that's what I think is very, very
Well,
morally wrong.
yep, even innocent people he kills, especially when he has client. He was assassin. I mean, he was an assassin before he became a master of King Arthur. Not to
Is that a
mention King
spoiler?
Arthur is uh he's not going to die. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
He's gonna live, adapt hero, and another holy grail will occur. So yeah,
Okay,
his
so
son will.
I'm getting
Yeah, yeah.
a message here. So and somebody's having an echo problem with their microphone right now. Maybe it's yours, maybe it
Ooh.
isn't. Anyway, we're gonna try to fix that in a while. But anyway, yeah, that's the thing about material self, social self, and spiritual self. So that's the three yeah, the holy grail of the me self, kumbaga. That's like
Yeah.
the holy trinity. So let's go to the next one, which is the true self and false self. So next slide, please.
Okay. True self and false self by Donald Winnicott. That true you are true to others, you are not hiding your feelings to others, and false self, that would be mean you are being judged by others, but they don't even care about you. They don't even know who you are. You are nobody to them. So, best example of this, this situation would be Charlotte Katakuri from One Piece. He hides a lot of his personal, let's say, personal self. He hides it from them, his true self. Members of the Big Mom Pirates. He's the triplet, older triplet brother of Oben and Daifuku, the three sweet general commanders of the Totoland from One Piece. He's not really like, he doesn't like to reveal his face to anyone with his scarf around. But until one day, Luffy decided to raid Big Mom because he wanted to save his crewmate from being married, Sanji. Sanji was about to be married to Big Mom's daughter, and of course, he got an alliance. So Katakuri fought Luffy inside the mirror world, or should I say, a secret world where they can go to other places around Totoland. He fought Luffy to thwart, his escape back to Sunny. He fought Katakuri there. He reveals his face during the fight after getting beaten up
Oh,
by
so
Luffy.
I'm pala yun, Rem. So hold on. So if I could take the lead for the while being, kasi apparently we're
Yeah.
having audio difficulties. Pero ayun nga, that's the thing about, well, from you daw. There's a echo daw. They sent a audio, pero that's all right. So let's keep on going with the webinar. So ayun nga, the true self and the false self, as you can see with Charlotte
Yeah.
Katakori right here. So
Yeah.
this guy
This guy.
wears a scarf for like most of the entire time, but
His face looks like a, fishman. A
Oh.
freak from the sea.
shaman, ano yun? Shokoy, yeah.
Fishman. Yeah, Shokoy
Yeah, yeah.
in our world, in our
Sorry, shaman is the wrong
legend.
word. Mhm. But yeah,
He-
that's very interesting kasi, with Katakuri, there's a reason why he hides his true self, which is like his, kind of like his demonic self. And I think that's
Well-
like a, how do I say this? Kind of like a metaphor, yeah, sometimes we all really have like demonic looking faces in ourselves. We look like Shokoy inside,
Well-
but yeah.
Well, actually, his true self is not actually that bad because he's a gluttony. He wants to eat everything that shapes donut. His power is even donut. Mochi mochi no mi. He fought
Right.
Luffy with that power. He hides his power. He never show his power of Mochi Mochi no Mi before. That's why he has the scarf.
Ah, okay. So yeah, that's the
He
crazy
loves
thing. And
donut.
yeah, but if I would like to add a small detail on my own experience, I mean, there's really nothing bad with having a false self and a true self. It's
Yeah.
just don't be one always. Like don't be always your false self and don't be always your true self, because there's for me there's like roles for both of those. Not all of the
Yeah.
time you have to be true. You have to show everything that you have none of your privacy, things like that. It's um yeah, it's very difficult. When I was siguro nung junior high school ako, I was really like that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so true. Yeah, I'm this, I'm that. I had no time for my privacy. Pero, eventually nung umabot ako ng senior high school and ngayong college, I decided, I've realized na privacy is very important and things like that. So,
Yeah.
ayun din. And at the same time, don't always be your
You
false
have your
self.
special space. Your own special
Exactly.
space.
Exactly. That's kind of like the point of that. So, and also the false self. I know a friend na basta every time talaga she's like always so false. Like I don't know how to say this, pero like you can see it in her eyes. Every way she acts, it's always false. It's not her. Kaya I always wonder what she does at home. I wonder kung who she is and all of those jazz. But yeah, aside from that, just always know that being false isn't necessarily bad. There's always a time for those, and those are avenues for you to learn eventually. When you hide yourself to the public, and then, for example, you're gonna go up on a stage, and then you're going to perform. You have to show your true self na mahiyain ka and all that stuff. So you have to show your false self and have false confidence muna. Pero sabi nga nila, fake it until you make it. So you can fake self
It
confidence
can
until
also, by the way, for false self as well, you can use it in strategy in war. Because if you deceive the enemy, you do not know who he is or what he really is,
that's true.
you might even lose in the war or being taken over your country.
Yeah,
More like a
parang
spy.
sabi ni Sun Tzu yata yun,
Yeah.
war is all about deception and
And betrayal.
exactly. So when you are near, let them know that you are far, and when you are far, let them know that you are near. It's all about deception in the art of war. But
Yes.
aside from that, let's not talk about war because it's more of improvement of the self here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's not do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you have to make false things, fake it until you make it. Yun nga, sabi nga nila. And yeah, until you gain more about your true self. So yeah, things like that. And next slide, please. All right, so I guess that's all of our opinions, right? Any
Yeah.
opinions to add, Rem?
I don't have anything right now.
All right. So that's like the final different psychological perspective of the self, and yeah, I would like to have my synthesis right now of all of those. Next slide, please. All right. So thank you, Rem, and thank you to everyone else behind before me, our wise speakers, sila, si Ranran and Jessery. They're all of them. They're really great, especially si Rem. I really appreciated our conversation a while ago. That was very um nakakadagdag sa knowledge ko, and I like learning. Learning is a good thing. So to wrap this all off, there are a lot of perspectives that we can view ourselves as, and because of this, there's really not one way of answering the question, who you ka? These psychological perspectives of self are just collections on how to answer that question. And next slide, and next slide again. Yeah, so here we've got the things like the real and ideal self. So real and ideal self tells you that you become who you want to be if you work hard for it, and who you are right now is a step ahead from when you started dreaming. And the next one is the differentiated self, that tells you are in relation to your attachment to the people you depend on and have a relationship with. And as for the third one, the self as proactive and agentic, it says that you are not just a reactionary being to your nature and environment, but you are a proactive and actually make the story for yourself and the world around you. And I think that's very poetic, to say the least. I think it's my favorite, my favorite, how do I say this? Yeah, psychological perspective of the self. So, Yan, the I self and B self that I explained a while ago, tells you that you are both your consciousness and the person that you think everybody thinks you to be, the material self, social self, and spiritual self. And lastly, the true and false self, which tells you that you are who you are, that's not bound to any sort of rule or facade. At the end of the day, what does this mean to us? You know, during the time of the pandemic, what our webinar would just like to explain is you could be who you want to be in this pandemic. That's all right. It doesn't have to be something that can be put into words like what we've done a while ago, but by thoughts and actions. Yeah, or also it could be something that we explained a while ago. And as Socrates once said, sorry, ignorance is bliss, and that applies to our situation right now. You don't really have to know the definition of yourself, and that's all right. If you think otherwise, that's okay. You just really want to be out there and discover who you really are, and I think that's very noble. But for other people who are hopeless in this time of the pandemic, with all the trouble and bad news happening with the pandemic itself, like social issues and politics, we just want to tell you that we understand you. And if you don't know yourself anymore, that's all right. But just realize that you exist to yourself, and you exist to other people's lives, your friends, family, classmates, significant others, professors, workmates, and all of them. You exist to them. And here's what I suggest you guys to do. Next slide, please. Next slide again. Yeah, there we go. So here's what I think that you guys should do. Number one, take a break, because all of these problems and issues in the world, they're just very superficial. If you think about it, we don't have control over any of the problems regarding world health and the government. It's out of control. Just take some time to rest and take a breather first to reconnect to yourself and what your reality really is. Instead of focusing on things that you do not have control over, focus on what you have control over. For example, take care of yourself. You have control over yourself, diba? Physically, mentally, psychologically. Just remember that you're a beautiful flower in this garden of a world. And yet, you yourself are also the gardener. Don't forget to water yourself daily and give yourself enough sunshine so you can bloom to your fullest potential. And once that's clear and done, the second one is to learn. Review what we said in our webinar. Review the different types of psychological perspective of the world, of the self, and see if you relate to any of those. And if you do, I'm very glad for you. Thank you if that's the case. That way, you already have a definition of yourself. But here's the thing. You guys should also realize that these are not the only perspective of the self. Explore, the world is not only confined to these rules, as something I've learned from music. Think out of the box. It's not only the major scale or the minor scale. There's also different scales in music. So just think outside of the box. And you can find philosophical perspectives or sociological, anthropological, and even sexual perspective of the self. Just know that you guys don't really have to conform to just any one of these. Or hell, kahit di kayo mag-conform to anything actually. Because you define yourself. Because you're unique. Yet at the same time, all of us are. We're all unique. And I believe that we're all one under this universe. And which leads me to my last suggestion. Number 3, even though you may or may not know yourself, it doesn't give you any reason to be mean to other people. Always be kind and always be virtuous. Always look for non-violent solutions and always be susceptible to learning. Because it is in my experience that one can try to define themselves more by doing and being kind to other people and creatures. In my experience, when I was a little younger, I would also be rude and ill-mannered towards people. I'm not the man I'm not the man I was yesterday. Nung junior high school talaga ako, it was very chaotic for me. And most of the time, it's caused by me, to say the least. And yun, with that, I don't really know my purpose in life. All I really know was to invoke other people to get angry at me. Pero, ayun nga, that's the beautiful thing about life, We learn. Every day we learn a new thing. And ayun, if we become kind, we become, open to more things in life. You'll learn more, and when you learn more, that's when you become better, and that's when you also find yourself. And when you grow up, you'll realize that the world is not centered around you, and you are not the protagonist of this world, and so is everybody else. We're just in one big play with all the characters being side characters to each other's life. And quoting the words of Tao Tse Tung, next slide please. This is a famous Taoist Oops, sorry. Here's our favorite Taoist line: "Those who know do not speak, and those who speak do not know." Well, let's go back, please. That's very embarrassing. I don't know my own PowerPoint. Yeah. So, yeah, those who know do not speak, and those who speak do not know. Take some time to take a breather and observe the world around us, because it takes observation to take a concept, but it takes living by it to learn. It looks like I've been speaking too much. That must mean I don't know. Joking. Anyway, I hope you guys learned something from our webinar, and I'm really proud of you for listening through all of this. And yeah, thank you to all of our speakers a while ago, to Yan, Mr. Ranran, to Miss Jessery and Mr. Ram a while ago. I'm very glad with their performance. Yeah, I hope they're also glad of me. But yeah, anyway, that's all for now. And I'll return the stage to Madame Kim. Secretary Kim.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And wow, I'm speechless to our speakers. I've learned so much about self. Dati kapag tinatanong ako kung sino ako, pangalan ko lang nasasagot ko. Pero meron pa pala yun na different perspective on how you will view yourself, ano? And it makes me realize na I am me. And all I need to do is accept who I am and what I want without thinking about what people might say. So, again, let me thank our great speakers for today's event, Mr. Ranran Saicon, Miss Jessery Ann Diaz, Mr. Remerson Torres, and Mr. Mark Angelo Santos. You guys did a great job. And we all know that all good things come to an end. And of course, so does today's event. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar, and we hope that you learned a lot from our speakers. Moreover, I hope that everyone was able to reflect upon their recent life experiences and relate it to the timely topics that were discussed earlier. And that's it. I'm Kim De La Torre of MMA 102, and this has been Huyo Ka Identity Crisis in the Time of Pandemic. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank
Woo!
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Finally,
All right,
80
and
to
that
target.
concludes it, I think.
80,
Yep, let's
80 to
stop it.
target
Thank you.
422.